the janitor who secretly paid students. Lunch debts for 20 years. The most heartwarming school story ever. The boy with the empty tray. It was raining hard outside. Cold. Rain. The kind that made the school windows shake softly while students hurried through the cafeteria line with wet shoes and dripping backpacks. The cafeteria smelled like tomato soup, warm bread, and pizza. Kids laughed loudly. Friends traded snacks. Someone spilled chocolate milk near the corner table. Everything looked normal, except for one boy, 12-year-old. Ethan stood silently near the cashier holding an empty tray. His hoodie sleeves were wet from the rain. His shoes were old. One lace was broken, and his eyes stayed glued to the floor. The lunch lady typed his student number into the register, then her smile slowly disappeared. Oh, she looked uncomfortable. You still owe lunch money, Ethan. The line behind him became quiet. Ethan swallowed hard. How much? $43. The students behind him started whispering. Again? He never has money. That's embarrassing. Ethan's face turned red. He slowly pushed the tray away. It's okay, he whispered. I'm not hungry, but... He was hungry. Very hungry. He hadn't eaten dinner the night before. His mom worked 2 jobs and still struggled to pay rent. Some nights she pretended she already ate so Ethan could finish the last noodles in the kitchen. Ethan turned away from the cafeteria line, trying not to cry. That was when a quiet voice spoke behind him. Give him the tray. Everyone turned. It was the school janitor, old Mr. Henry, the man who cleaned floors every night. The man students barely noticed. Gray. Hair, wrinkled hands, old work boots, a small flashlight hanging from his belt. The lunch lady looked confused. Mr. Henry, he reached into his pocket slowly, pulled out a few folded bills and placed them gently on the counter. I'll take care of it. Ethan stared at him in shock. You don't have to do that. Mr. Henry smiled softly. Every kid deserves lunch. Simple words, quiet words. But Ethan would remember them for the rest of his life. What nobody knew was that this small moment was part of a secret Mr. Henry had been hiding for 20 years. A secret that would eventually shock the entire town and change hundreds of lives forever. Chapter 1. The Invisible Man. Most students never noticed Mr. Henry. To them, he was just the janitor, the man pushing cleaning carts through hallways, the guy fixing lockers, the person wiping cafeteria tables after everyone went home. Students walked past him every day without even saying hello. But Mr. Henry noticed everyone. He noticed who looked tired, who wore the same clothes every week, who sat alone at lunch, who pretended not to be hungry, and who quietly threw away past-due lunch balance letters before friends could see them, because Mr. Henry understood that kind of pain better than anyone 30 years earlier. He had been that child. Chapter 2. The Hungry Boy. When Henry was young, life was hard. His father died when he was only 9 years old. His mother cleaned motel rooms during the day and washed dishes at night. Still, there was never enough money. Henry remembered what hunger felt like. Not normal hunger, real hunger, the kind that made your stomach hurt during math class, the kind that made you dizzy while everyone else played outside. At school, lunch became the hardest part of the day. Every morning he prayed his lunch debt wouldn't be mentioned out loud. But one afternoon, it happened. The cafeteria cashier stopped. Him. You can't eat until your balance is paid, kids. Laughed. Someone pointed. Henry stood frozen, holding his tray. He wanted the floor to open. Beneath him, he wanted to disappear. Then suddenly, our teacher stepped forward, Mrs. Patterson. She quietly paid his lunch bill without saying a word. No lecture, no embarrassment, no pity, just kindness, real kindness. Before Henry left, she leaned down and whispered something he would never forget. Someday when you can help someone else. Those words stayed in his heart forever. Chapter 3. A promise nobody heard. Years passed. Henry grew older. Life never became easy. He worked construction jobs, warehouse jobs, night shifts, anything he could find. Eventually, he became the janitor at Jefferson Middle. School, the pay was small, the hours were long, but Henry liked schools. He liked hearing kids laugh in the hallways. It reminded him that hope still existed. Then one afternoon, He saw a student crying near the cafeteria, a little girl named Mia. Her lunch tray had been taken away because her account balance was overdue. The look on her face shattered him, because suddenly he was 9 years old again, hungry, ashamed, invisible. That night, Henry couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Mrs. Patterson, about the words she told him decades earlier. Someday, when you can, help someone else. The next morning, before school started, Henry walked quietly into the cafeteria office and paid Mia's lunch debt. Then another, students, then another. Nobody noticed, nobody asked questions, and that became the beginning of a secret that lasted 20 years. Chapter 4, The Secret Payment. Every month, Henry used part of his paycheck to pay students' lunch debts, sometimes $20, sometimes $50, sometimes hundreds. When winter came and families struggled harder, Henry worked extra hours, waxing floors, fixing pipes, cleaning classrooms late into the night. Not for himself, for the kids. He kept a tiny notebook hidden in his locker. Inside were names, students who needed help, students who never asked, students who were too embarrassed to speak. Henry never wanted credit. He never told parents, never told teachers, never told the principal. He believed kindness worked best when nobody was watching. Over the years, students came and went, but Henry stayed, quietly protecting children from humiliation, quietly making sure no kid sat hungry during class, quietly carrying the pain of hundreds of families on his shoulders, and nobody knew, not even his own daughter. Chapter 5. The Man Who Never Bought Himself Anything. Henry lived alone in a tiny apartment, old furniture, a small television, one coffee maker that barely worked. His winter coat was over 15 years old. His work boots had holes inside them, but he almost never spent money on himself. One day another janitor asked him, "Henry, why don't you ever take vacations?" Henry smiled. "Some kids need lunch more than I need beaches." People thought he was joking. He wasn't. Every dollar mattered to him because he knew somewhere inside the school another student was pretending not to be hungry. Chapter 6. The Girl Who Saved Half Her Apple One Afternoon. Henry noticed a girl named Lily hiding part of her lunch inside her backpack. Half an apple, 2 crackers, a milk carton. He gently asked, "You saving that for later?" Lily looked nervous, then whispered, "My little brother gets hungry after school." Henry's heart broke. That night he sat alone in the janitor closet crying quietly because children should never have to think like adults. The next morning, Henry secretly paid off her family's lunch balance for the entire year, and every Friday after that, extra food mysteriously appeared in Lily's backpack. No note, no explanation, just kindness. Chapter 7. The Worst Winter, Then Came the Hardest. Year. Factories closed across town, parents lost jobs, families struggled. Everywhere, lunch debts exploded. The school administration started discussing stricter policies. Some students would receive smaller meals, others would be denied hot lunches completely. Henry overheard the meeting while fixing lights outside the office. That night he sat silently in his apartment staring at bills. His savings were almost gone. He was 67 years old. Retirement was near, but all he could think about were hungry children. The next morning, Henry walked into the bank and withdrew nearly everything he had saved. 20 years of savings gone. By the end of the week, dozens of student lunch debts disappeared, quietly, secretly, like always. Chapter 8. The Boy Who Found the Notebook. The secret might have stayed hidden forever, except for one accident. One evening after basketball practice, Ethan accidentally entered the janitor storage room, searching for a lost shoe. That was when he found the notebook. Small blue, worn out. Inside were hundreds of names, dates, lunch balances, page after page after page, thousands of dollars. Ethan stared in disbelief. Then he saw something else, his own name, Ethan Cole. Lunch debt paid. Underneath, no child should feel ashamed for being hungry. Ethan felt tears fill his eyes. Mr. Henry entered the room suddenly. He froze. The notebook slipped from Ethan's hands. For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Ethan whispered, "You paid for all these kids?" Henry looked embarrassed. "It's nothing." "Nothing?" Ethan's voice cracked. You helped hundreds of people. Henry slowly sat down. His tired hands trembled slightly. When I was young, he said softly, someone helped me too. Chapter 9. The video that changed everything, Ethan. Couldn't stop thinking about the notebook, or Mr. Henry, or the thousands of hidden acts of kindness, so he made a small video, nothing fancy, just photos of Mr. Henry, cleaning hallways while Ethan explained the secret. He uploaded it online with one title, The School Janitor Who Secretly Paid Kids Lunch. Debts. At first, only a few people watched, then hundreds, then thousands, then millions. The story exploded across America. People cried watching it. Parents shared it, teachers shared it, former students began commenting online. Mr. Henry paid for me in 2008. He helped my brother. He saved me from embarrassment. I never knew it was him. News stations arrived at the school. Reporters crowded outside, but Mr. Henry hated attention. When cameras approached him, he simply said, kids deserve kindness. That was all. Chapter 10. The surprise assembly. A week later, the school organized a surprise assembly. Students filled the gymnasium. Teachers stood smiling. Mr. Henry thought it was just another school event. Then the principal stepped onto the stage and began telling the story. Mr. Henry slowly realized everyone was talking about him. He looked overwhelmed, embarrassed, emotional. Then one by one, former students walked onto the stage. Adults. Now nurses, firefighters, teachers, business owners, parents. All of them had once been children with lunch debts. All of them had been quietly helped by Mr. Henry. One woman stepped forward, crying, "You fed me when my mom lost everything." Another man said, "You made me feel human again." Then Ethan walked onto the stage carrying the old blue notebook. He looked directly at Mr. Henry. "You spent 20 years feeding us." His voice shook. "So today, we want to help you." The giant gym screen lit up. Donation. Total, $142,000. The entire gym exploded with applause. Mr. Henry covered his face and cried, real tears, deep tears, the kind that come from carrying pain alone for too long. Chapter 11. The most beautiful part. But the most beautiful moment came later, after the assembly ended, after the cameras left, after everyone went home. Ethan found Mr. Henry sitting quietly in the empty cafeteria, just staring at the tables. "You okay?" Ethan asked. Henry smiled softly. "You know what makes me happiest?" "What?" "That maybe tomorrow, some kid won't feel ashamed anymore. Not the money, not the fame, not the applause. Just the idea that children could eat without humiliation. That was all he ever wanted." Chapter 12. The final gift. Mr. Henry retired 2 months later. But before leaving, he made one final request to the school board. He asked them to create something called the Quiet Kindness Fund, a permanent fund ensuring no student in the district would ever be denied lunch because of funny. The school agreed immediately. The community donated millions more. Soon nearby towns copied the idea, then other states. One small act of kindness spread across the country, all because one janitor remembered what hunger felt like and refused to ignore it, ending the hallway lights on. Mr. Henry's final day at school. Students lined the hallways silently, hundreds of them holding handwritten signs. "Thank you. You fed hope. You changed my life." As Henry walked through the hallway, many students cried. Teachers cried too. Even the principal wiped tears from his eyes. Then little Lily, the girl who once saved half her apple, stepped forward and hugged him tightly. "You made us feel loved," she whispered. Mr. Henry could barely speak. He looked around the hallway one last time. The lockers, the classrooms, the cafeteria, the floors he cleaned for decades. Then he smiled, a tired but peaceful smile. Because after 20 years of secret kindness, the invisible man was invisible no more. And somewhere deep inside that old school, no child would ever have to stand ashamed with an empty lunch tray again. Final heartwarming line. Sometimes the greatest heroes in the world are not rich, famous, or powerful. Sometimes they are simply kind people who quietly decide, no child should go hungry if I can help. If this story touched your heart today, don't forget to come back for more unforgettable stories about kindness, hope, and the people who quietly change the world. Subscribe and join our family, because the next story might stay in your heart forever.